All right, welcome back, guys. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. He is Gary Sheffield Jr., and you are watching Yankees Unloaded. Today, the episode is after a Yankees win. The Yankees stole the series from the Angels after looking a little shaky at the beginning of it. But last night, there's no stealing whatsoever, Gary. 8-3 win, really dominated the game. Now, I will say, this is like the only time in the Yankees history where they've scored X amount of runs and 5 hits or whatever. I saw that stat. But I don't really care because the walks were, once again, we talked about it's really important, to work these counts. And the Yankees did just that. 8 walks. They struck out 10 times, Judge being 4 of those, even though he hit the home run. He made sure to mention that. It was like, I hit, I had 4 strikeouts. So, but it was a fun game. A little shaky at the start. It was 2-1 in the fourth. The Angels got up first. But the 5-run seventh inning really decided this game. Now, before we get too much into all of that, I just want to understand something. And you already know where I'm going with this because we continue to talk about it. Why the hell is Ron Marinaccio not on the Yankees, bro? Why is he in AAA? I watched Canely. I like watching Canely. I think Canely's good. Tonkin only pitches when the game has no chance of being blown. And Caleb Ferguson, is going to give Gary a heart attack. You tweeted
tweet
out
about it every time I see him. I have to. He's not good. And again, when we criticize players or just for what they do on the field, it's nothing personal, which should be obvious. But when your ERA is 5.60, I get that there's all types of analytics, different things to determine value other than earned run average, but there is nothing else to look at. When anyone who's actually watching these games with consistency can see, this is just not of winning culture. It doesn't equate to winning. Caleb Ferguson is not part of this winning equation. Marinaccio was. So I don't know. I'm not sure where they're going with it. Perhaps they just want another lefty look, I guess. But, what does it matter if you're giving up hits lefty or righty? You're still giving up hits. So
exactly.
That's where I'm at with it. And, we won't harp on it too much just because this was a comfortable win. But I did say last show, the Yankees need to do a better job of putting pressure on Anaheim. Just because they're a bad team, or as you call them, highly mediocre, doesn't mean you can't have good habits. Today we had great habits. Yeah, we struck out 10 times, Judge being 4 of those, but we had 8 walks. And when you do that, you have situations that Juan Soto got into where, frankly, he didn't hit the ball very hard, but it drives in 3 runs. And so that's the type of pressure that this Yankees offense has to create. They did it. And if you do that, you're going to win. Because we've talked about our staff. We'll actually kind of dive into the whole Clarke Schmidt thing here in a second. But when you put pressure on teams, they're going to fold. Most teams in baseball will break when you put pressure on them. Some teams have put pressure on us, and it's broken us. So that's our job offensively, and I liked what I saw.
I really liked what I saw. It was a shame that Rodon ended up with the stats he did because the guy only gave up, 1 hit. What was the home run? Then he gave up another hit in the 7th, and they took him out. And I understood taking him out. Ian Hamilton, obviously, he gets 2 strikeouts. He wasn't, horrible or anything like that. Ferguson, I don't like watching Ferguson. I'm just going to be honest there. But the reality of the situation is that Rodon at a 3.09 ERA is pitching more like a sub-3 ERA. That game, he definitely deserved to get out with just 1 run given up. Sometimes that's just the way things work out.
Well, they also don't have surplus at the rotation anymore. So that's another conversation, Jake, that Rodon was at 87 pitches for those of you who are paying attention. But the Yankees, with Clarke Schmidt going out for what people are expecting to be 2 months, they said he's not going to throw for 6 weeks. So that means 2 full months we're not going to see him. But having said that, do we want to miss Clarke Schmidt? Absolutely not. But it puts you in a position where you're not going to push Rodon maybe 105, 110 pitches because now the Yankees actually have a necessity for Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole is just filling in the rotation now. So a very different situation than what we were expecting. But I
Yeah.
think that could potentially have some impact on what Boone did.
I feel like at this point, this is sports. I mean, anytime I was just saying this to my father yesterday because I get the Clarke news right after we record, drop the the show. That's always how it works, guys. We don't get the news right when we're recording or before. So right after we record, like I go home, visit my family, and I get the Clarke Schmidt news, and I'm talking to my dad because I feel like there's always a conundrum with sports where there's too much of something, and then for whatever reason, it's like, and you immediately see this guy goes down or this guy goes down. Well, that took care of that problem. You're not happy about it, but it did. What was the thing we kept talking about? What was it that we kept talking about? We kept talking about the rotation and how there's probably 6-7 guys that could be in this rotation. Even Cody Poteet, who's going to start probably Saturday, right? So we keep talking about the surplus and who's going to be, because they're not going to do a 6-man rotation, who's going to be sent down. And then it just gets figured out. It just gets figured out like that. Clarke Schmidt is going to be the guy out of the rotation. To me, this sucks because I think he's actually not going to get back into the rotation. That's what this tells me, is that he's probably going to. I don't know how he would, because I mean, unless somebody really struggles, the best ability is availability. And Clarke Schmidt being out for 2 months, like you just said, Gary, like that really concerns me because I think he's the second best pitcher in the rotation when Cole is not in the rotation. And now with this injury, what people are not understanding is that when he comes back, he's not going to take over for a Stroman or a Cortez or anybody like that if they're pitching well. And we have to assume that hopefully, you have to hope that these guys are going to pitch well. So it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. On one hand, you could be a fan of Clarke Schmidt. You could believe he is the best move for the Yankees and, hope he gets in. But if you believe that, you have to also understand it. The only way he gets back in is if somebody struggles. On the other hand, the Yankees are going to look at it and be like, well, Nestor Cortez didn't miss those 2 months. Marcus Stroman didn't miss those 2 months, and their ERA is still below 4, and they're still being efficient. They're not going to rush Clarke Schmidt back, and they're not going to, supplant anybody for him after he's been gone for 2 months. So I heard what he said, talking about how this felt more precautionary than anything, trying to make sure he's there. He didn't need surgery. Talk to, Elitrosh, who is actually the Rams medical guy. So I know him very well. Not him personally, but I know who he is. Normally, when you see Neil Elitrosh, you're not feeling good about it. It's like Dr. James Andrews. It's not a good thing. But Clarke Schmidt made me feel pretty good about this situation for him and for his well-being and for the long term. It sounds to me more like this is precautionary, kind of like Garrett Cole. And they're going the safe route here, knowing Cole's coming back. So I think knowing Garrett Cole is coming back, I think is what decided this. Not to say that they would push him through it, but I think that's what decided them to just say, we're going to shut him down for 2 months, And my thing, Gary, is that when you look at Clarke Schmidt, the thing that we were seeing, his stuff, the combination of putting it all together, the command, his stuff, his confidence, you need all of that when you're on the mound in Major League Baseball. If he has all those things, he's really kind of turning himself into a Game 3 or Game 4 starter in the playoffs, right? So I kind of think he could get that back, but I don't think it's going to be during the year. I think they're going to use him as kind of a bullpen hybrid starter, and then potentially in the playoffs, fresh, make sure he's good to go. and then maybe you roll with him in game 4, and it's
Okay.
more so Aaron Boone sitting there like, hey, I have this at my disposal and this at my disposal. It's more so not really a planned out thing long in
Okay.
advance, but it's kind of like, let's see where they are at that point.
Yeah, see, I don't like reinventing roles come
Oh, I
October.
don't either.
So for me personally, Nestor Cortez is out this rotation the second Clarke Schmidt comes back because, like you said, and I agree, I think he's hurt, no question about it. But it wouldn't be a 2-month thing. I think that timetable is coming out because, like they said, they're being cautious. It's something that might miss him like 2 or 3 starts if he actually came back when he was ready. But for me, this boils down to you said availability, and I thought that was a really good point. But speaking of availability, in 2023, Clarke Schmidt threw 100 and what was it 100 and let me pull it up 159 innings. So 159 innings is a mark that not just Nestor Cortez hasn't reached in 3 years. That's a mark that Marcus Stroman hasn't hit, right? And I brought this up the beginning of the season, not to pick on anybody, but based on players' track records in terms of availability, Clarke Schmidt's had more availability than either of those two players. So if I had to make a judgment in 2 months when Clarke Schmidt's ready, I have data to show me that he'll be ready the rest of the season. I have data to show that this feels more like bad luck and not a trend for Clarke Schmidt to get hurt. So having said that, I'm making decisions based on trends. And the trend says that Nestor Cortez will run out of gas before the season ends. So if Clarke Schmidt's hurt right now in the short term, we know that long-term data says that Nestor Cortez doesn't usually throw more than 130 innings. Same thing goes for Marcus Stroman. Well, then now the Yankees are in a position where they've got two players that no one across baseball has trusted to go big innings. So now, do we actually have a surplus on our hands? Yes, we have 5 comparable starters when Garrett Cole comes back, but how reliable are 2 of those starters? In my opinion, in terms of a 35 start window, not very. So now the Yankees are in a situation where they have to make a decision. Clarke Schmidt returns. Who's more reliable of those 3 guys? Clarke Schmidt, Nestor Cortez, right? Of those guys, what do? I personally roll with the guy in Clarke Schmidt. That's what I do because he's shown me that he's a better pitcher than the others, and he's shown me he's more reliable. So I get what you're saying that based on skill set, you're like putting faith in him that he can start game 3 of a World Series or an American League
Absolutely.
Championship Series. I think we both agree there. But what I wouldn't do is make him a Michael King situation where we kind of hide him back in the bullpen as this super utility guy because we don't want to give him his role back. I think Nestor Cortez is probably just going to give it right back to him. That's my opinion. And Nestor Cortez is very valuable. He's pitching well this year. He's done nothing wrong. But again, data says he won't be available. So that's where my opinion's coming in. I guess you can call it an opinion. I'm really just spitting out data and then telling you why I think that data is going to be relevant in 2024. So, yeah, I think that Clarke Schmidt is just a far better pitcher than Nestor Cortez. So, having said that, if Garrett Cole's here in 2 months, I'm just shuffling Nestor Cortez right to the bullpen. And that arm that you see in Caleb Ferguson that everyone told me, oh, well, he's left-handed, so that's really the fit. You go ahead and send his bags down to Scranton, and then you go and send me Nestor Cortez in the bullpen. That's where I'm at.
I mean, I think we agree. It's more so me trying to feel like, trying to figure out what the Yankees are going to do. And this is why I didn't want this to happen. Obviously, you never want guys to get hurt, but I felt like if Heel or Schmidt went down, that would be their way of kind of sorting that out. Okay, they're out of the rotation. And it's not saying something that I would do, but I'm just saying keep an eye because, like I said, even if Nestor falls off a little bit, just a little bit, and, Stroman falls off a little bit, those guys have been pitching. They have that experience. I don't think they're going to look at it necessarily as like, oh, they've been, they're used arms. I think they're going to be used to it like, hey, these are experienced arms. These are guys that have been pitching throughout those 2 months, if it ends up being 2 months or whatever. And I think that could ultimately be the deciding factor. But what I will say is that, like, looking at all of this, we're talking about two guys that have been hurt more than Clarke Schmidt. We're talking about Nestor and, of course, Marcus Stroman. So I just said earlier, talking with my father, how it just seems like these things always tend to just work themselves out for good or for bad. And I wouldn't be surprised. Not trying to predict injuries here, but I wouldn't be surprised. You talk about the data. The data also says that Stroman and Cortez get hurt. So, that's another thing. But I don't want anybody to get hurt. I just want the best rotation possible. And if we're talking about the best five in a World Series, and you're going to use a 5-man rotation in the World Series, Garrett Cole, Luis Gil, Carlos Rodon, Clarke Schmidt, and number 5 depends on the day between Stroman and Cortez. Really does.
That's where the surplus goes to help you, because you get an opportunity to make a choice. Most teams in Major League Baseball, the Arizona Diamondbacks won the National League last year. Does anyone know who their 5 starter was? It was Zach Davies.
Oh, I think I was going to say Zach. I was going to say Zach Davies.
Zach Davies was one of the worst pitchers in the history of Major League Baseball last year. He was absolutely butt water, terrible, awful. I watched it all the time. It's here on my local network here in Arizona. So let's be very clear. A lot of really good teams don't have these type of choices. They don't have these type of problems where they say, well, who of our 5 guys, they're all pitching well. Now we've got 6 guys. We brought in a guy who just won the Cy Young. So clearly one of you guys is coming out the rotation, or we go 6-man rotation. Some people think we should go 6-man, right? And then there's other people who say, well, we should kick a Nestor Cortez to the bullpen and then send Caleb Ferguson packing. Okay. Not many teams in Major League Baseball have that problem. Some really good teams out there. Teams like the Los Angeles Dodgers, they have question marks at the back end of the rotation, whether it's health related or talent wise. So it is a really good problem to have. I don't like personally when injuries kind of answer your questions, because to be honest with you,
not a fan of that at all.
Bring this up is that we really thought another situation, Jason Dominguez, he was becoming healthy this year. We were talking about it all last year, kind of the timetable for that. And I was really excited about Dominguez. But here's the crazy part. We were just projecting Dominguez in this team as a DH because we were worried about his UCL in his spot for Giancarlo Stanton. But when Giancarlo Stanton's hitting, I don't give a rootin' tootin' about Jason Dominguez in the short term. I just don't. I just want him to be healthy, prepared, go down in the minor leagues and go play. But we make those projections based on projecting Stanton out of the lineup. But when Stanton's playing, it's a great problem to have because now there's not even a conversation to be had. That was the nice part about having Clarke Schmidt healthy, which you completely agree with. We all would like to see him healthy, but I think it's a little overblown when you look at the Yankees and say, well, they had 5 performing starters and then Garrett Cole's coming back. So the innings are just coming out of everyone's ears. And in the short term, I think that's true. But again, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Long-term data shows that 2 of those 6 options that the Yankees were deploying after Garrett Cole shows back have trouble staying on the field. It doesn't necessarily mean they will in 2024. There's always outlier seasons, but the data trends usually repeat themselves. That's all I can say about it.
No, you're absolutely right. I want to talk about last night. I want to talk about the lineup pivot over there because that was one of my favorite lineups we have deployed all year. LeMahieu at first over Rizzo. I was actually really liking that, especially defensively.
Yeah,
and I liked Cabrera back in the lineup. I thought he worked a really, a nice walk there. Got it to 3-2 and forced that. Cabrera's hitting 242. A lot of the hype has died off. Keep in mind, when Birdie came back, Birdie played like 3 days in a row. Cabrera, when he was hitting well, was off 3 days in a row. We talked about that in a series they ended up losing, the first series of the year, I think. And I just think, end of the day, when you have that lineup that we saw last night, you're not going to lose many games. LeMahieu's hitting the ball hard. We talked about it, the game he didn't have a hit in, his first game back. And we said, well, I was really encouraged by the way LeMahieu was hitting. My issue has never been LeMahieu's bat or his glove or just how good he is. My issue is, can he stay healthy? If LeMahieu is healthy and he's in the lineup, I think I actually prefer him over Rizzo, if I'm being honest, because I think his defense is better than Rizzo's at first.
Okay.
But plus Rizzo is starting to kind of go downhill with the bat lately, if you haven't picked up on that. But with that said, I also like the opportunity when, Torres or, somebody like that struggling or Cabrera struggling, you can move him to third. You can move him to second. So if LeMahieu keeps, delivering and showing these at-bats, I know he's only batting 222, but I think his at-bats are worth over, and obviously he's only had quite a few of them.
Sample size is tiny, but I actually have a question.
He's looked really good.
He has looked good. Jake, I have a huge question. So
yeah.
This is actually a question I have for the chat as well. I need to know, because the Yankees seem to be in this situation with a couple positions, first base, third base. Okay, those are the main positions.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a better option in the short term, but you also have an understanding that it's highly unlikely that better option is going to be healthy in the second half of the year, do you still play that option in the first half? Because my argument is that if you have a better option and you play them, and they're an unreliable guy, they're considered an injury-prone player at this stage of their career, I don't think it helps anybody when you play the better option and then the person who's more durable, that's maybe a slightly lesser version of that player, sits on the sidelines. I personally like to go with someone who's more surefire at first base. I completely get what you're saying with LeMahieu defensively at first base. You kind of like the way he moves over there. Way more athletic. He gives the Yankees a more athletic look, which I think a lot of us have been talking about.
Yeah.
But you mentioned his durability. His lack of durability has been an issue. It's been a problem. He had a really strong second half of the year last year, so we have to give him all the credit in the world for that. But he's dealt with a lot. Physically, he's dealt with a lot. And he's no spring chicken. He's 34 years old. Obviously, Anthony Rizzo also, same thing. But Rizzo's been a more durable player for the Yankees outside of his concussion last year. And he tried to play through that. So it kind of just goes to show what he's about. But yeah, again, Jake, the question is, Rizzo's the lesser player, in my opinion, between LeMahieu and himself. But I find Rizzo to be a slightly more reliable physically. And so given what the Yankees have struggled with over the years, which is durability, do you go away from the more durable player for the better player? That's, I guess, the question.
I think you do. I think we've already seen his errors have cost them games, and
That's
the
fair.
Yankees are trying to win the AL East. So the bottom line is the margin for error is very slim. The Orioles, for whatever reason, have played like 4 fewer games than the Yankees. I don't know.
A ton of rainouts. I think that's what it is.
Okay. That makes sense. It is bizarre though. They're 35-19 and the Yankees are 39-19. So it's like, by the way, big game today. Yankees are vying for their 40th win in the first 2 months of the season. That's pretty freaking awesome. I don't think any of us thought that they'd be here. But before we get into that game, LeMahieu scoring 2 runs. You talk about athleticism. That's very much on display. I think run scoring has become very underrated because we have all these different, analytics, and you always bring it up. So it's not underrated on the show because you're like, I want Volpe scoring over 100 runs. Like you say it all the time.
Yep.
But run scoring is underrated because the reality is if you're still around to get across home plate, you did things right. You may have gotten lucky every now and then, but it's a stressful thing being on the base paths, man. You always have to be scanning. You have to kind of have, you know, you have to have oversight into the future almost. You have to kind of like play things out in your head. Like, if this happens, I'm going here. If this happens, I'm going there. You're getting guys constantly trying to take cheap outs and pick you off. It's not easy being a base runner. So, love that I saw 2 runs out of LeMahieu. I think it's an underrated stat. I think it's something that we should look more into. As far as the home run for Judge, that was huge. And that's have you ever seen a triple like the one Soto had yesterday? I mean, what in the hell was that? That
It was
was
ugly.
that. I mean, Joe Adell, who keeps getting dunked on by I don't know if you've noticed, Michael K keeps dunking on him. That, by the way, is the biggest miss that I've ever had in the MLB draft. I thought
You thought
Joe
it was gonna
Adell.
be amazing?
I thought Joe Adell was going to be like Ken Griffey Jr. That's what I thought.
Yeah,
I
and
thought
Joe
he was
Adell
going to
has
be
actually shown
superstar.
some flashes this year. This is the first year I've been paying a lot of attention to Joe Adell.
Yeah.
Adell, he has all the physical traits that you can want, but you've seen it with Byron Buxton. Byron Buxton's a perfect case.
He's a perfect example. They're like
Byron
the same
Buxton,
player.
Yeah, I think Byron Buxton. So this is my personal opinion. This might sound ridiculous. Outside of Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts, I would even say more so than Mookie Betts. I think Byron Buxton is the most athletic baseball player that's ever played the game outside of Bo Jackson. That's how athletic.
Well, he was an athletic freak. He's another guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I missed on both of those guys. Isn't that the irony? I thought they
Yeah.
were both going to be superstars.
That is funny. But it's
What's real?
He's so good, dude.
I remember when Byron Buxton was coming out and people kept comparing him to Torrey Hunter, and I'm like, what are we seeing here? Like Torrey Hunter, yes, okay, fine, like the athleticism, the glove, but Buxton's power. I mean, he was a legitimate 5-tool prospect.
Yep.
And it just didn't work out. And the same thing with Adell. I watched him and I was like, oh my God. I was like, if the Yankees could somehow get him, and obviously, this is probably me having that biased take because I liked him early on and that never goes away. But he's 25 years old. I wouldn't mind the Yankees taking a flyer on him at some point, maybe around the trade deadline if they need another outfielder. On Joe Adell.
Interesting.
Because, I mean, the Angels are going to be sellers at the deadline. They're 21 and 35.
Yeah, they might be. But I'll say this:
14 games under 500 at home. So when you can't win at home, it doesn't make it any easier.
I think Adell has actually shown enough life where the Angels just shouldn't trade him. That's my opinion on it.
I don't think the Angels should trade him, but I think the Yankees, that's somebody that I think might be better with Rousen. I think Rousen's done wonders for the Yankees lineup. I really believe that.
No question. Yeah, no question. And there are a lot of staffs out there in baseball, and I'm really cutting this short. Trust me, guys. Like, I'm really underselling this. There are a lot of staffs. Look at me when I say this. A lot of staffs better than the Angels. I promise you, Joe Adell would be better off not chilling with the Angels. Okay?
Oh yeah,
because they don't know what's going on over there. Like, this is the same team that thought Shohei Ohtani, the Shohei Ohtani, was coming back to go play next to Disneyland. That was never going to happen. It was ridiculous, right? Ridiculous statement. The owner had so much ego that he was like, I'm not trading this guy. If he
didn't even trade him. He got nothing for him.
I'm like, well, he left. Now what? And they just don't talk about it anymore. No one talks about the Angels. So, yeah, Joe Adell, in my opinion, I know he's kind of taken a little steps back, these last few days. But I'll say this. Joe Adell has shown enough physically. He just turned 25. I don't send him anywhere. If I'm Anaheim, I know you agreed. They took him in the first round. This is a first-round player. There's a reason they were so high on him.
First round.
I don't get rid of him. Got to give him a chance.
Yeah, and if they're willing to get rid of him, this is my rationale. Ready for this? I mean, we're getting closer to the draft and the trade deadline, so it's fair to bring it up. So why would the Yankees, when we're talking about the outfield being loaded, why would the Yankees go out and get him? First off, I think he is a much better option than Trent Grisham. Okay, I think he's a much better option than Trent Grisham. But second, long term, Next year, again, I'm going to keep bringing this shit up. We heard from Hal, him talking about this is not sustainable. This is the type of move that you would make if you're saying the spending isn't sustainable. Because it basically, when I heard that, the first thing I thought was Verdugo's gone. Verdugo's not coming back after the year, even though he's number one in defensive runs saved for left fielders. But preparing post Verdugo, putting Adell out in left field.
By the way, Verdugo is going to be a $15 million player.
Easily, like without a doubt.
Contract use, actually, who's a very comparable player, in my opinion, contractually.
I mean, Brandon Nimmo is making $20 million, and he's better than him. So,
yeah, but who's the player we just had? Benintendi, Andrew Benintendi. I think that Benintendi's contract is something that Verdugo will be after. The question marks for him were never performance. It was always, is this guy going to bring it every day? Because that's the way he was criticized by his own staff. I've talked about this a few times. The Red Sox staff talked about his drive.
Well, sounds like an Alex Cora issue.
It seems like an Alex Cora. Yeah, it seems like a culture issue. But, like I've said before, I want to remain consistent. Players are responsible as well for themselves. Yes, the culture can be bad, but you're responsible for yourself. If you don't run down the first base line, I've got to talk to you, not the culture. So having said that, if Verdugo's shown, okay, he might be on his way out of New York, because we love Verdugo on this show. I mean, he's performed great this year. He's been excellent.
I would want him back. 100%.
You'd want him back. But again, where's the fit, right? Because when Hal tells you we're going cheaper, and I believe him, I do, he's also kind of throwing some stuff out there, because we've got this looming question of what we do with Juan Soto, how high we go contractually. And for a lot of Yankees fans, they don't give a rat's ass how much we go up, right? It could be 600 million, 700 million. No one cares, right? Because it's not our money. It's Hal's. He's going to charge us for chicken tenders regardless. So you go get Juan Soto. What do the Yankees do with the rest of this team? So the answers lie in their farm system if you want to go cheaper. And we've got Jason Dominguez and we've got Spencer Jones, two players on this show we're very high on. So having said that, if those players are a part of the future of the Yankees, that's cheap.
Absolutely.
It's not expensive.
Volpe's cheap. Wells is cheap.
Right.
I mean, our guy that we mentioned the other day, Caleb Durbin, cheap. Arias, cheap. Peraza, Cabrera. Thank you. That's literally why when people call me a prospect hugger, I always push back. Because it's not that I would never trade a prospect. But ideally, if you can get starter level play out of your prospects, it's no different than the NFL draft, because they have a salary cap and you're getting all those guys at a rookie contract level for the next 4 to 5 years, depending if it's a first round pick, you get a 5th year option. That is what allows you to build a team. With baseball, there is no salary cap. But if you're self-imposing yourself to not spend a lot of money, the best path to success in that regard is to develop your farm system. This is why trading for mid relievers, and I'm not saying a middle reliever, I'm saying mid relievers, giving up prospects, giving up prospects for middling relief pitchers. Efros, Alvarez with the Dodgers, giving him up for a relief pitcher. That bites you back, okay? And there has to be value. So if the Angels were willing to trade away Joe Adell, his value isn't very high right now. It's literally just, hey, he was a first round pick. He's crazy athletic. He reminds me of Byron Buxton. That's Joe Adell right now. Oh, and the occasional Michael K. Adell, pun that he likes to throw out there, rolling in the deep. Here's the deal, okay? I'm not saying the Yankees need Joe Adell, but as we wrap up this series, I thought to myself, he's struggling. I think the players around him have nothing to do with it, but I think the coaches around him have a lot to do with it. And I think the
Oh yeah,
Angels have
that's
a
right there.
poor coaching staff, to go back to your point. And I think if you brought him in with James Rowson, I think he'd actually have a pretty good time in New York. Addition to that, he becomes a very good bench piece, a depth piece. But if it works out, now you're talking about a guy that could take over next year, for Alex Verdugo. And let's be honest here, we are huge Spencer Jones fans on this channel. Spencer Jones is struggling in Double A. He's struggling mightily. He's dealt with injuries. He does not look good. So why rush his timetable just to get him to the majors when you could do something like that? And to be honest with you, Gary, the reason I'm bringing this up is because this is the type of stuff the Yankees are going to be doing, because what Hal said was basically he was letting us know the future. The Yankees are going to make trades at the deadline. They could very well end up with IKF again, to your point, earlier in the year. But I could see them going after these kind of younger, forgotten about busts and trying to get the most out of them. They did this with, not saying that he was like a first round pick, but they've done this with Clay Holmes. They did this with Didi Gregorius, not saying that he was a bust, but they've gone out and they've gotten guys before that you're like, that's interesting. That move could actually pay off. And it did.
Well, we did that with DJ LeMahieu.
DJ LeMahieu.
That we signed DJ LeMahieu, that we were getting the batting champion. We were not.
No.
We were getting a player who hit 350 2 years prior or a year prior, and then he kind of fell on the mat. And then the Yankees said, we think we can fix him analytically. Analytics is not all bad, right? You can apply it and you can utilize it and make it work. And that's what the Yankees did. Matt Blake he uses analytics a lot. So if people hate analytics, we don't hate analytics. We just don't like it to be overused. And there are a lot of teams out there.
That's all it's ever done.
So the Yankees are one of those teams who have overutilized analytics. They've just fallen in love with it. But in certain aspects, you have to give it credit. Matt Blake, sinker, slider, cutter, right? All those pitch mixes, it's analytics driven. It's tunneling driven. So having said all that, I see what you're saying about Adell, because it can put us in a position, like we're in a position essentially with a slew of outfielders. We've got all these guys. We've got a really good, it's almost like bringing in a solid backup quarterback when you've already got a really good starter in place, because you can't have enough good quarterbacks.
Do you know what this is?
What is it? It's a backup quarterback for the Rams.
No, this is the Seahawks trading for Sam Howell when they have Geno Smith.
Right. So they just gave him a big extension.
Long term,
Yeah.
If it doesn't work out, you didn't give up a lot for him. So it's like, okay, we move on.
Yeah, which is why we said the Angels shouldn't trade him. Yeah, if your guy's got talent, you shouldn't trade anything on the low. If you're going to get nothing for him, your organization has nothing. Why the hell would you trade something for nothing? Makes no sense. The opportunity for the Angels to get something back was last year. Actually, it was the year prior with Ohtani. They should have traded Trout 3 years ago, back before he was getting hurt every year. And the Angels would have made out like bandits, but they didn't. So now we're in a situation where, and I don't even know if it's with the Yankees, there are a lot of organizations that Adell would be better suited to be a part of. There's
Absolutely.
Better staffs, right? There's
3 years of control, by the way, with the 3 arbitration years. So,
to be honest with
you,
what's that?
There would be a reason to trade for him, I think.
Yeah, no, I can see the reasoning for sure. But I kind of bite back on the fact that it's not player related. That team is butt.
But I don't think yeah, but it's different with baseball. It's I don't feel like these guys are putting him in a position to fail, say a bad quarterback throwing to an elite wide receiver.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Or yes, exactly.
100%. It's baseball. Mike Trout can just go play on, the White Sox and go hit 325 and be the only person giving you an output. That can.
And when Mike Trout comes back, where is his fit? Warden left, Pilar in center. Trout is taking over for Adell.
Yeah, probably. But I mean, they also, like I said before, the Angels are struggling with value. They don't have a ton of value on this in this whole organization. They could trade Pilar to a contender like a Milwaukee who we didn't expect to be winning, and you just throw them out there. Pilar's not a long-term fit for literally anybody. He's a veteran guy. He's kind of like Tommy Pham. Tommy Pham's going to be same thing. It's going to be Pilar, Pham.
That's how he even
Pilar.
became available. That's the irony there. But
yeah, there you go.
Moving on to, because I mean, great way to end the series and everything. Love the blowout. I texted you during the game. I was like, I want runs. Right after that, Soto had the dribbler triple that we'll probably never see again in our lifetime. So 8-3 win, 39-19, 21-11 on the road. Yankees rolling, and they finish May 8-0 in series matchups. Now we move on to tonight. Okay. San Francisco Giants taking on New York Yankees in San Francisco, 10:15 Eastern time. It's a late game for the East Coasters, but it is a Friday, so you'll probably be able to spend some time and watch it. Marcus Stroman taking on Jordan Hicks, who's actually a former bullpen guy. The Yankees were very interested in him. A big reason why he did not sign with the Yankees, they didn't view him as a starter. Okay. So the Giants said, we're going to sign you. We love your stuff. We watched you in St. Louis. We watched you in Toronto, and we are going to sign you to be a starter. And guess what? Jordan Hicks, good for him. He's getting better every game as a starting pitcher. Now, he started as a starting pitcher in the minors, like Mariano Rivera with the Yankees. They found, the Cardinals found that he was more valuable in the bullpen. So they moved him to the bullpen. Like you said, flamethrower guy that can throw over 100. I call him the good Hicks. The other one, the bad Hicks, is Aaron Hicks. But yeah, the Yankees tried to trade for him at the deadline, I think 2 years ago. Toronto acquired him, and then he became a free agent. Yankees tried to sign him again. Giants ended up getting him because he liked the plan there more. Can't say I blame him. I'd rather be a starting pitcher than a bullpen pitcher all day, every day. And I think it is a huge, I want to say this is a pretty nice thing as a player to have a team that into what you're doing, where they believe more of you. Like, they're like, hey, we're going to stretch you because we believe in your stuff as a starter. We don't think you've been utilized correctly. I think that's what every player that is good, not great, or elite wants to hear. And Jordan Hicks is having a good year. He's not striking out guys the way he did as a relief pitcher. Obviously, there are plenty of reasons for that. But Hicks had an 8 strikeout performance the other day, Gary, and I just think this guy is just going to continue to get better and better and better. I know it was against the Mets, and quite honestly, you and I could strike out the Mets, but it's getting better and better and better each week for him. Had 9 strikeouts against the Pirates, in April. So he's getting there. They're keeping his pitch count lower, Gary. I've been monitoring this guy for quite a while. I've always really liked him. I was hoping the Yankees could get him. So if you couldn't tell, I'm very, knowledgeable about tonight's starting pitcher for the Giants. But the pitch count, they're not going to keep him in there for 100 pitches. They're really trying to do this the right way. Okay. Right now, he's averaging right around the 80. Yeah, I mean, right around the 80 pitch mark. I mean, the last game, 87. The game before that, 72, 93, 92, 88, and 88, 96, 86, 79, 91. He's not going to go over 100. So, I mean, if you have a hard time going up against him, even his best games, Gary, where he gave up 1 hit or he gave up 2 hits or 3 hits, they have a schedule when they're taking him out. So this could very well, Gary, be one of those games where Hicks just deals. He just absolutely shoves. And they just take him out 6th inning, and the Yankees go up against that bullpen, and they have to show him what they're made of. ESPN matchup predictor actually has the Giants winning tonight. Okay. 52 to 48%. So
yeah, that's fair. But this is one thing I will say. I feel like the game plan's pretty clear for the Yankees. The Yankees coming into this year, it seemed like they were really struggling in years past with approach. And
Yeah.
I talked a lot about approach and not harping so much on strikeouts, but making quality outs, situational hitting, being able to get a little bit more athletic, or just being more aggressive on the base pass and just playing smarter. And coming into this game, it seems like the objective is clear. If a pitcher won't go more than 80 pitches and he's only giving about, based on my math, 5 1/3 innings, that tells you you shouldn't be swinging early in this game. You should be very patient. In my opinion, Jordan Hicks has better stuff than any other pitcher on their staff. It does not matter if it's a reliever. It doesn't matter if it's Logan Webb. I don't care who it is. He has the best stuff. That's the reason they moved him into the rotation, is because not everyone believed in the fact that a reliever, his arm can deal with the brunt of what a starting pitcher has to deal with, right?
I love that, by the way. I love that, like this creativity by the Giants.
It's
Like,
creative. It
I'm
is.
glad they're getting rewarded for it. I was glad the Yankees got rewarded for it with King. I don't know. I there's something about it, like you're going against the grain, man. Everyone else is saying this, and you're saying no. You're all wrong. This is what he is. I like that.
I
I
just
like
come
that.
into the game and just get really okay. You just have to get creative as an offense. Then, if they're going to get creative and put a reliever out there, right?
Yeah.
You put Michael King in the starting rotation. Essentially, it's what they did, just with better stuff. He only has 80 pitches to work with. So what does that tell you? Hey, this guy's got wipeout stuff. So that probably says he's got 48 strikeouts in 58 innings. That's not crazy great. That's really
No,
not that good.
he's
So
been
that
focusing on being more
literally
efficient.
right. So that literally means you can be patient early in the game. The Juan Sotos, the Anthony Volpes, the Aaron Judge, right? Those type of players can get patient early in the count, and he doesn't have the wipeout strikeout pitch. Okay. He's got wipeout stuff, but it's not missing bats. So you can work the count. By the fourth inning, I'm expecting him to be out this game, late in the fourth inning. And
Yeah.
that's more count related, more approach related. If you see the Yankees rolling into double plays and swinging early in the count, yeah, this is going to be a long night. Because if a guy has a pitch count limit and you're swinging early and rolling into double plays on a sinker, which he absolutely features, that's just silly baseball. So, having said that, coming into this game, you should know what to look for. The hitters for the Yankees should not be aggressive. This is the time where you allow their approach and how they utilize a player to work against them. You have to go against it. So we'll see what happens.
We will. It's kind of funny. Tonight, you have Hicks, who is homegrown from the St. Louis Cardinals. And the same night he's pitching for the Giants as a starter, Miles Mikolas is pitching for the Cardinals with his 6 ERA. There's something that's really funny about that because, like, any Cardinals fan that I've ever talked to is like, we never have pitching. It's always been either like Chris Carpenter and a bunch of dudes or Adam Wainwright and a bunch of dudes. And their pitching is better this year. Lance Lynn is pitching well, but I mean, he's older than dirt. And, Sonny Gray is pitching well. But it's just funny to me. Like, you had this guy in your back pocket and you just were like, nah, we're going to trade him to Toronto. And this is also kind of a reminder of like, trading at the deadline might be the move at the time, but you also have to think a little bit longer. This is a 27-year-old starting pitcher now. Jordan Hicks, his value has never been higher, and he's in the NL. So I think those stats are going to continue to be what they are. That's the crazy thing. So I think the Giants, made magic here. We'll see what ends up happening tonight. Same thing with Stroman. Stroman can walk guys. I think the Giants are going to need to be patient. I think the Yankees and Giants will need to be patient. If we see two free swinging teams, which is very possible, I wouldn't be surprised if both of these guys have no hitters going in the sixth inning. Like, I really wouldn't. But like you said, having the approach is everything. Aaron Judge is, he almost went to the Giants. We talk about it all the time. Now he's back home in San Francisco. I'm very curious to see if he hits a bomb tonight. It seems like he's always hitting home runs. By the
That
way,
seems like a distant memory that Aaron Judge was going to
oh,
San
I know,
Francisco. They never got their face of the franchise guy.
Arson Judge. I know they got Matt Chapman. What do you mean? But and Thairo Estrada, who was a Yankee prospect. He's one of their best players. It's kind of funny. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Their leader in batting average is Thairo Estrada with a 243 average.
Oh, that's just terrible.
Matt Chapman is their leader in home runs with 8. So the thing, let's not get it twisted. The thing that keeps the Giants above 500 right now is that they win on the road. But how do they win on the road? Or they win at home. But how do they win at home? How do they protect home field? It's their pitching. Their pitching is what is keeping them around. It is what has kept them around. There's not really a lot to like. It's Chapman, Estrada. Soler has been a total bust. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, didn't Lee, he's going to miss the year? That's a huge blow, you know? So you talk about that. As far as the pitchers, though, Logan Webb, good pitcher. Harrison's kind of average. Jordan Hicks is really good. Wynn is And they don't really have another starter after that.
I mean, Snell hasn't really. Yeah,
hasn't
really got.
Isn't Snell hurt?
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, like their pitching, it's really been more so like their bullpen, you know, Doval, Rogers, both Rogers, Tyler.
So if we
and
score, we're going to win.
Taylor.
I mean, it's the same story for the Yankees. We come into this game, if we go get, I would say 4 or 5, 4 might get it done today. To be quite honest with you, Stroman's pitching in the pitcher's park, that'll get it done.
Yeah, I think 4 gets it done in San Francisco. I think 3 gets it. I think this could be like we might see another like exploding 7th or 8th inning from the Yankees. I think it could be one of those games where it's literally 0-0, 1-0 going into the 6th. As soon as Jordan Hicks comes out, the Yankees are going to have to make him pay. I think they'll do that. I think they probably win this game 4-2 tonight.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to go 4-1. Just low scoring. Bullpen doesn't give up anything. I think Stroman gives up a big homer, just like a launch solo bomb.
Matt Chapman, probably.
Who knows, right? And then that'll be it. They'll pull him. He'll start smacking his glove, and then we'll come out with our bullpen. Won't give up anything. Ferguson won't pitch because he pitched yesterday. So, yeah, I think the bullpen goes unscathed.
It'll be Mike Yastrzemski. That's who it'll be.
Good. Yeah, I can see it. I mean, can't you guys?
Yeah. I mean, he just hits random home runs. But this is a team that's trying to make the playoffs. These are must-win games on both sides. The Yankees are trying to win the AL East. Not saying the Giants are going to win the NL West, but they're 6.5 games out. They're tied with San Diego right now. You know, they're behind the Dodgers. I mean, they can't afford, because also keep in mind, Dodgers are playing the Yankees next weekend. So if they could sweep the Yankees and then the Dodgers get swept by the Yankees, that would be a lot of damage done and would be chipping at that lead. So we'll see what ends up happening. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Always a lot of fun, except when Clarke Schmidt goes down with an injury. Then it's not really that fun. But yeah, be sure to check us out on all social media at Gary Sheffield Jr., at JK Bogan, and at Yankees Unloaded. And we will see you guys in the next video. Take care, folks. Later.
And like this video.